So if I hit F over here, and I'm going to duplicate this guy off, and we'll just make a quick pair of pants so we can I can kind of talk to you about the different ways you can go from ZBrush to Marvelous Designer if you want to make a pattern in ZBrush, let's say. First, so what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and mask off where pants would go, hit Control W, and then we'll go into solo mode here, isolate that poly group, delete hidden, and now we'll try and go down here to our masking menu, and we'll see, we'll go mask border, and you can see we have a border in here where it was has a seam line. So just temporarily, let's go down to geometry, modify topology, weld points, and now when we go down here to mask border, it'll just mask our border here. We'll control click in the document to invert that border, and then we'll just go here to deformation, polish by features, open circle, and we'll just polish that down so we get a nice smooth line there. Now that we have that, we can go ahead and Z-remesh this thing. So let's go to geometry, Z-remesher. We're going to do adaptive size down to 0 to get nice even quads, hit half, hit Z-remesher, and just keep hitting that until you get down to the resolution that you want. Now I can go into deformation, inflate, and we can just pump that up just a little bit just to get his pants out of there, away from his body a little bit. And I'm just going to cap these two tops. So I'm going to hover over an edge, go into my Z-bundler brush, which is BZM to pull that up. Or you have a hotkey like I do. Hover over an edge and choose close convex hole. You can click, and that'll close that hole off. And then you can click, that'll close that hole off. And if you have X turned on, it'll do both at the same time. So go ahead and turn X on if you want to. You can isolate these polygroups here by control clicking. Hit Control W to give them one solid polygroup here. And now we've got a pair of pants going. So at this point, you can go to geometry. We're going to go to crease, polygroup, and now as we subdivide, it's going to go ahead and subdivide up. So what we can start doing is just start sculpting our basic forms here. And I'm not going to do a nice pair of pants or anything, but just kind of demonstrating if we want to do specific cuts, we can actually start making patterns in ZBrush utilizing UV maps to kind of get the cuts we want. So let's say we want to go ahead and UV this thing. We know in Marvelous Designer we don't want capped pants. That's just for kind of sculpting in ZBrush here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and delete lower. I'm just going to grab these pants here. I mean, if you've got these all detailed up to like subdivision level 5 or 6, you can just go down to subdivision level 1 and start cutting in your seams, depending on where you want your seams to be cut. If I want super specific seams, you'll see how I'm going to do that right in just a second. So what I'm going to do is, I guess, you know what, we'll go down to subdivision level 1, hit delete higher, and these are going to be our pair of pants and with seams that we want. So what I'm going to do is go to Z plugin, and we're going to go to UV master. We're going to keep symmetry on, turn polygroups on, and go into solo mode here. Let's go ahead and Control Shift click just the red part. We'll go to geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. And now what we can do is work on clone. That's going to clone these pants off and give us something else to work on just in case something goes wrong. And we're just going to copy the UVs later. We're going to go to enable control painting. You can use that to kind of, if you want to attract seams on this side here, you can kind of paint in where you want your seam to go. What I tend to find is more reliable is just going in here, holding that Control Shift, go to select lasso, and let's go ahead and just cut in right along the side here where we want that seam to be. And go ahead and undo this one, and we'll invert that, and we'll go ahead and hold down Control Shift and then Alt, and just cleaning up these seam lines. So we've got this thing seamed from the front and the back, like so, and then the back and the front here, just kind of cleaning these up here. So now we've got inside front and back seams here. There we go. So now if I hit Control W, that's going to give my seam line right along here. And if I want to get even fancier, I can cut another seam line pattern up in here if I want to, or cut it around here. It depends on how your geometry is kind of sliced and where you want these cuts to go. So if I isolate this one here, and let's say we want another seam line in the front here, we can just make a new polygroup of that, and that'll give us a new pattern. So when I have symmetry on, polygroups on, turn off enable control painting if you're just going to use polygroups, hit unwrap, and then we'll hit flatten, and that'll go ahead and flatten your patterns out. Let's go ahead and hit move, and we'll go down here to brush, auto masking, mask by polygroups up to 100, and we'll just go ahead and move these things around. So if you just turn off X, so you can move these patterns around like so, and now you can just kind of touch and drag, and that'll move these patterns away. Looks like that pattern got borked, but that's okay. Now we can hit R to rotate, and I'm just basically going to move these things around so we can see them as we want to see them in Marvelous Designer, which is like this. And then we're going to go to rotate here. Now I wouldn't necessarily use this for pants, and when we get into Marvelous Designer you'll see why, but just in case you're doing something more complex with more complex UVs, you can do this. We can go ahead and mask this one because they're both of one polygroup here, and then we can move this one over. So now here's our basic pattern here. What I'm going to do now is just do a, you can screenshot this. I have a program called Greenshot that I can go through here and just take a quick screenshot of these patterns. Hit Save As. I'm just going to save this right on the desktop here as pants UVs, and I can bring this in later into Marvelous Designer if I want to. So now, if I go ahead and do, if you wanted to copy these UVs, we've already gone over this before, but you can really quickly go to UV Master, unflatten, copy UVs, go back to our regular pants here, go to paste UVs, and now these pants have the UVs. And if you did have multiple subdivision levels and you drop down to subdivision level 1 to UV, this would be where you could do that. Of course, if you have it capped, you'd want to go ahead and UV those caps as well. But since I'm just using this for patterns, I went ahead and just deleted them. So now that I've got my UV patterns, we can take those into Marvelous Designer and use that pattern to make the pants.